My name is Deberah Galvez, and I'll be demonstrating fur transfer and flocking. This is a test head that I did a number of years ago, and it's on a foam latex skin. The skin's a little bit old, so it's been worn, but I just brought it so you could get an example of how flocking looks. And what flocking is a method that we use for realistic animals. What I'm known for in the industry is doing realistic animals. And this is synthetic flock right here. It comes in nylon and acrylic, and this is a head that we did for a show called Xena years ago. And this was a test head that we used, and it's been painted. So on the other side, I'm going to do the demonstration. So we have a clean skin here, and the first step is that you prep your skin, and you have to ground your item that you're flocking with the connector here. Then the second step is you put your adhesive on, and what we use is the Prozade adhesive. And you just kind of brush a coat on. I kind of pre-did it because it needs to dry clear before I could even continue the flocking process. But you put like 1 or 2 coats. We put coats on sparingly because if you put it on too thick, then it's going to shrink the skin, and then the animatronics, we're going to have trouble with it when it starts moving. It's going to shrink up and it's not going to move at all. So you got to be very conservative with the adhesive. Unless it's a display piece, then you probably can go a little more heavier. So we're ready to get our flocking gun. And what we do, this gun is normally used for jewelry, boxes, and car window sills, and it's like a powdery flock. What I use is different types of fur. This right here is actually calf, or a cow rather, that I dyed. And this is like long flock right here. You could flock anywhere from 1/8 of an inch to 1/2 inch. So I cut this a little bit shorter because the screen is a little bit tight with the holes. And normally I retrofit a chicken screen wire so the holes are at least 1/2 inch wide. So we're going to see if this works. So I cut the hair very short to see if it could go through. So you load your fibers in after you brush your glue. And then we have like an on-off button. And when you put the button on, when that red light flashes, that means you're ready to start flocking. So you get ready, and your glue is all ready to go. And normally I would like the glue to be a little more clear. When it dries clear, you're pretty much ready to go. But since this is a demonstration and we have a little bit of a time thing going, I'm going to go for it. So you turn on your button, you start shaking, and the fur just shoots out. And you just keep working on it until you get that coverage. And as long as the glue is wet, you still have a grace period of getting that glue on. Right now it's shooting out really nicely. So you kind of get your first coat in, let it settle, see where you're at. So it's still clear, you still see the glue, so that means I still got some work time to go. So I'm going to get some more flocking and go over it again. And right now it's flocking very nicely, so I'm very pleased about it with this screen. And you just keep working until you get that coverage you want. And depending on what you do, what kind of animal it is, a horse, a bear, whatever it is, you get your brush, you kind of brush off the excess. And if you have a dryer, it's nice if you just blow the excess off. But you don't want to brush the fur down right away because you still got that glue underneath. So you want to make sure that coverage is going, but if you do brush it very lightly. I feel pretty confident in brushing it because I've been doing it so long, so I kind of know when or when not to brush. But we still got some coverage, so I'm going to go for it again. And you can continue to do this until you're all covered and you don't see that shine anymore. But it probably takes about a good 24 hours before it's completely dry and that you could really touch it. So I'm going to go for it. I just really want to get that coverage in there. So it's coming out really good right now. And the longer the fibers are, like this is really short, the harder it's going to become to flock. So the short fibers come out really fast and even. But if I was to flock like 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch, it's going to be a little bit harder to get that coverage. So you just keep doing it until you get that coverage you want. And then after it's dry, like a few hours, when you don't see that gloss anymore, you can start grooming your direction. And that's where the fun is, because animals are very directional naturally. So they always have some kind of direction, like whether it goes back or it goes forward or it goes sideways. You always have that direction. That's what kind of sells the look. So I even could actually go even a little heavier if I wanted to. But just so you can get an idea, you know. I'm kind of brushing the excess fibers that are loose on the skin right now. And again, you could use a dryer on a low temperature. So after that, once you get your coverage on, you're pretty much good to go to train the direction. But normally I would wait a few more hours because you don't want to see that shine. And my final round of flocking would be like a powder, almost like when you do makeup, you do like powder at the end and just kind of lightly go over it so it kind of takes away that shine afterwards. The final product will look more even. You basically start from the back and work yourself forward. So that would be the final look at the end. And that's basically flocking in a nutshell. Okay, the second half of the demo is called fur transfer. And this is kind of the technique that we use if the flocking is for the finer stuff on the front of the face. Usually the back of the animal is a little more thicker, so it's a little more dense and it's a little more longer. So that's when we have the fur transfer, and that kind of transitions into the flocking, because usually the muzzle is like the shortest type of fur, so we use the flocking in that area. But say I wanted the animal to have long hair around his neck, so I would go with the fur transferring. So the first part of the fur transfer is you have your fur, and this is a fur that's cow. Again, you could use anything from synthetic fur all the way to goat fur, cow fur, anything. So you get your low-tack tape, and it's just straight-up painter's tape, very low-tack painter's tape that you can get in a hardware store. But make sure you get the low-tack, because if you get the heavy-tack, you could have all kinds of problems with the transfer, and then you could have trouble releasing your fur from the tape, and then your transfer will be ruined. So what I do, I get my piece of fur, and you get a piece that you can manage. So this is just a small piece just for demonstration purposes. And you just put your tape over the fur, you start fresh, and then you put your tape over the fur, make sure that it's all nice and firm. You flip it over, and you get a trimmer. This one I like, it's called Peanut, and you can get it at any beauty supply house. And I like it because the teeth is very narrow, and it's small, so it's manageable. So you just kind of remove the fur from the leather. So anyway, you release your fur, and see how you see the fur releasing onto the tape. So you basically go through all the skin, and once you remove all the fur from the leather, you get with this. Then the fur will be like this on the tape. So I kind of did it in sequence so you could kind of get an idea of the steps. So after it's all been transferred, it's on the tape. So you got all that skin removed, so it will be a flexible piece. The next step would be like spraying through an airbrush the same adhesive Prozaid, and you would just spray it so it's a nice even piece. And so the spray would look like this afterwards. So it's a flexible piece, so it's not hard and thick. And this flexible piece is very valuable on an animal because you could transfer it and you get the shape and you get the flexibility. If you were to do it straight on with the leather piece, it'd be thick, it'd be non-flexible. And this, you have a very nice soft piece. So the glue, again, is starting to dry. So I'm going to do it in two pieces here because we've got a long strip here. So whatever direction you're ready to go in, you kind of start there. So I would kind of wait till this glue was a little more clear, but since we're doing a demonstration, I'm just going to go for it. So wherever you want to transfer, you put your glue on. So just transfer it. Make sure that it's on really good. And I wouldn't disturb it until after it was totally dry. I just normally transfer it and then go back and do your trimming and grooming. So again, that's the second half. And if I want it to blend nicely, I just kind of peel that edge off so it'll kind of go on to the next piece nicely. And you just kind of butt it up as close as possible. And you transfer that. And then there's always room for grooming afterwards. After that, you would groom it and trim it and do what you need to do to make it all blend nicely. Again, in animals, it's very directional, so I'm just kind of doing a straightforward direction right now. But if I wanted to get real intricate, that transfer would go more like in this direction or straight up and down or back. Like I would remove the fur after it was sprayed. This hasn't been sprayed, so if I were to remove this, it'd be really fragile and fall apart. But, you know, if it was sprayed, it'd be another piece for transfer, and then you could kind of go in another direction, just so you have different directions and different lengths. And that's what makes an animal more realistic. The more directional, the better, because everything's very directional in nature. So that's basically a fur transfer.